Welcome, everybody. We're here talking about some of the pieces around technology and AI coming out of the Web Summit that was here just a few weeks ago in Vancouver. With us today is Matt Sinclair-Foreman, and Matt does some incredible work on the AI space. We've gotten the chance to work with him as well, which is super exciting. Matt and the people that he works with, they're really focused on the prompt engineering side of AI and helping you use AI in ways that are really practical in the organization. I think one of the coolest projects you recently worked on was with MasterCard. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you were doing there?
Yeah, for sure. So we built their first public facing AI product. It's a small business mentor. And yeah, it was just a really cool project. We brought together like a unique and custom data set that then is leveraged by an AI model to then provide like custom solutions for small business owners to help them navigate their business issues. So it's like
Yeah.
very much, yeah, like a lot of businesses fail because they don't have mentorship. So the idea here with like, how can we scale that for people everywhere?
Yeah, what such a cool initiative. And I know that the product is really focused on the US, at least so far. And I know here in BC, with losing small business BC, which used to support that segment, I can see people screaming for that type of thing here. So very
Definitely.
cool that you were able to build that product out.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. So I know when we were talking about kind of Web Summit was here a couple of weeks ago, massive conference here in Vancouver has created a lot of rejuvenated buzz around AI and technology and those types of pieces. When it comes to your thoughts on kind of technology and AI, what are the pieces around that or within that that you're the most excited about?
I think for me, it's this shift towards these like reasoning models. I think that's come about in say the last 6 months is like a really big deal. Last year, you could get a lot out of these models, but there was still this level of unreliability. I think that is obviously still there to some extent, and they're still working on that. But the fact that these models think through what they're going to do before they do it makes them like more reliable, and you can trust them more with more complex tasks. And I think also it makes their behavior more explainable because you can actually look through and see how they're arriving at the decisions that they're making. It's not completely exposed. Models are still to some extent inaccessible to us, but there's a lot more available to us. So yeah, so that's one thing. I would also say that the thing that's really opened up for me personally, which is like really amazing, is the fact that you can now code and not just code with a model, but you can you can actually have an agentic coding agent an agentic coding system, which is where you actually use the AI not just to write specific bits of code for you, but you can actually have it supervise your entire code base, which for me, like I come from an arts and English background. So for me, and I've always wanted to code, never could. And so the fact that I can now literally be writing software like at home by myself with no engineer support is like incredible. Like obviously I'm not as good as like a full engineer by any means and never will be. But the fact that I can make simple programs that can do things I need for work or whatever is just fantastic. So I really recommend anyone who hasn't heard of vibe coding or ever tried it out to really check that out because it's a huge unlock, I think, for people who can't make software themselves.
Yeah. And I love your very humble approach to pitching with Smash because I've seen you do this and you are not doing it. I think it's the most
Well,
incredible piece. And getting to watch you use the different tools that are out there in the ways that they really are ideally used, and then how you've been using them in combination, I think is really unique. And a lot of folks that maybe are getting into the AI space are starting to use those tools. I think there's a real dip your toe in the water piece around it, which is great. That's a great starting point. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the different tools that you're using and what you're finding they're good for, because I've seen you use multiple tools together in combination to get to an end product in ways that it was like, oh, I didn't realize that's what that one is for. And that's what that one can be used for more successfully.
yeah, that's a good question. Wow. I use a bunch of different things for different reasons, but I think that in terms of my go-tos, I would say that like Claude is like this the sort of system that I use more than any other one. And it just got a research feature that is like really powerful. So I really recommend anyone trying that out. I think it's like a personal thing, but I think it's like, that's just the model I prefer. And then it's also arguably depending upon whether or not how it's been ranked, but it's the top coding model is between Claude and the new Gemini model from Google right now. And so I use both of those when I do coding, depending upon the task. And so I would say like that, those are two ones to look at. I think if you're looking for images, I think like Midjourney is still incredibly strong. I think if you're looking to create video, VO3 from Google is just unbelievable. I think there's some just jaw-dropping results, almost frightening results out of that model.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you're looking for something that's like really quick. A lot of the projects we do are conversational in nature. And so the model needs to respond very quickly. Like we'll do things with like avatars and so on, where it's, if you think about how quickly you need to have the model generate the text and then often turn that text into actual speech audio, you have a very narrow window for working. So I've been using, again, the Google lightweight models for that because they inference very quickly. And so you can actually have a natural feeling conversation,
Cool.
even though it's got to go through all these like steps of processing.
Yeah. And I think when we're thinking about some of these pieces around AI and technology, there's so many amazing tools out there. There's so many ways that they can be used. And there's also, I think, a lot of fear around what is it going to mean? What is it going to look like? There's lots of different ways that people kind of mental modeling their way through it and trying to approach it. But if you think about if there's anything that we're not talking about that we really should be talking about when we're thinking about AI and the advancements in technology, what are things that are there just aren't on the forefront of the conversation? Or even if they are getting talked about, just not deeply enough or with enough of the highlight that they should. What are some of the things that come to mind for you?
Well, I think in terms of organizational things, I think that there is a huge pressure to adopt that comes from up top in many cases. And I think at the same time, there's not really an awareness or an understanding of what is actually like a good use case. And so I think there are issues where like people are rushing in to build these systems and they maybe don't have the data that they actually need to make something work. And so they end up with something that's like a bit unreliable as a result. And so it's suddenly it's perceived that the thing that they didn't really work out. Whereas I think a lot of that stuff can be avoided upfront if you pick the right strategy and really figure out like what is the actual thing that this model can do right now, and let's focus on that. So I think, yeah, there is this sort of like things are moving so fast and people aren't really aware of what's possible and what they should be doing. And I think that's just inevitable because the rate of change is so fast. But I think on a broader social level, I think it's really good for us to keep in mind like things like just the fact that I think AI, as powerful it is, has the possibility to actually amplify problems that we already have. So like environmental problems are like the consumption of energy and of water by these systems is vast. And I think we really need to be thinking about what does that mean for us and how can we promote companies that are using like smarter engineering in order to make these systems more lightweight versus this whole kind of drive to have bigger compute and more power and more money going into it. I don't think that's necessarily the way we should be emphasizing it. And then I think as well, there is this issue of access and education and distribution of AI across like social divisions and across class divisions and so on, where there are people who didn't have access to technology before and weren't really being informed on how it could be used to help, them achieve what they want. That's just getting worse. And so we're having like, is AI just going to end up making the powerful more powerful and everyone else just stay where they are? I think that's something we also really need to look at. So I would definitely encourage any kind of stuff around like education in AI. I think is going to be massive and should be going forward.
Yeah, that's something that would be really cool to see you do. Build some courses that the high
That
school
would be
students
great.
take. And that'd be
Yes,
so
my
much
business
fun.
partner, the guy I work with /for, he's doing that right now.
I'm just going to pause because I think your internet cut out.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you're
Sorry,
back.
sorry.
Okay.
We've been
It
lucky
only
with
cut out
that.
for like
I
2
was
seconds.
okay, good. I was going to say Abron, it's actually in the middle of making a course. So that's actually going to be really great when it comes
Oh,
out.
so cool. That's
Yeah.
great. So when you think about what are some of the fun ways that you're using AI tools, is there anything in there that you're just like, I'm having a lot of fun with this one?
Yeah. I've actually I can't talk about my day job, but I'm working on I'm vibe coding this project right now that's for a hackathon, which involves taking language models and basically putting them into a 3D environment and giving them like avatar bodies and allowing them to like navigate space. And then you're in there too, talking with them and interacting with them. So it's basically a way to create like a holodeck type experience. And I think
Cool.
that has multiple applications. I'm interested in the fun ones primarily, but I think that could be something that you could use in all kinds of simulated ways. But other people will probably do that. But yeah, no, it's amazing. It's working in Unity, and it's like you feel like you're actually interacting with like intelligent entities, and then they talk to each other and they start talking about things, and you're like, I never would have thought of any of that. And yeah, anyway, and currently the hackathon I'm working on is about taking a study around how Canadians feel about their identity as Canadians and making it into an interactive AI conversational kind of experience where you're actually, which I think is really cool because I think that's a difficult subject because it gets into politics and it gets into heritage and all these things. And so people tend to avoid those conversations. And what I found since starting to work on this thing is that it's suddenly you have this opportunity to talk about this like difficult stuff that's obviously very important in a very safe environment. So I think it could actually
Mhm.
be a cool thing. That's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I feel
Yeah.
like maybe there should be like an alternative web summit where it's all avatars and we get to go and enjoy and have conversation. That's
Yeah.
very cool. Maybe next year. That would be
Yeah.
great.
We'll write them an email. We'll see if
Yeah,
they like it.
I
Yeah.
like it. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Matt. We'll make sure that we
Thanks.
link to the work that you've been doing
Yeah.
at MasterCard. This is super cool. And thank you for so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you. And yeah,
Yeah.
take care.